Hey all, my name is Oda, and this is a Cortree TV talk. Today we're talking about disability, work, and entrepreneurship. Our guest is Jolene MacDonald, founder, creative director, and advocate at Accessibrand. Accessibrand is a collective of design and marketing professionals whose lives have been impacted by disability. Thanks for talking to me today, Jolene.
Thanks for having me, Oda. I'm very excited to be here.
So let's talk about your journey to the path that you're on now. What did you do before Accessibrand?
So I owned another agency prior. So I'm a graphic designer. So I owned a design company with a partner for about 15 years. And 10 years ago, my youngest daughter was born. I have three children. My youngest was born with disability. She was actually born with a rare form of dwarfism. And as I continued to advocate for her, I realized that our own design and marketing space was very inaccessible for people with disabilities. So I had started trying to educate and advocate to clients about the importance of improving their digital accessibility with websites and marketing products. And during that time, I was diagnosed with an invisible disability. It's usually invisible. It's called Ehlers-Danlos. So at one point, between trying to help my children, being a mom and an entrepreneur, and family member got very ill, that I decided that I needed to take care of my own health and my family. So I actually partnered out and then tried to work for someone for a year. I say tried because I think once you're self-employed, you're always self-employed. And during that time, I realized, again, like I said, the need to improve digital accessibility, and my passion became a lot about advocacy and understanding the need for flexible employment for people with disabilities because of my experience. And I formed Accessibrand.
You're somewhat of a serial entrepreneur. You've had a few businesses. The most interesting name of one of the business you have is the unicorn and the pickle. That stood out right away.
Yeah. So my background before graphic design was fine art. And when I was going through a lot of my health struggles, I was also not making consistent revenue. And so I decided that I would teach paint classes. So, when everyone gets together and ladies drink wine in an evening and they do a painting, that is exactly what the unicorn and the pickle is. So we haven't been doing it now since COVID happened, because obviously I didn't want to do online. I preferred to do in person. So that was a side hustle to another hustle. It still exists, but it hasn't been operating now for some time, well, 2 years.
Right on. So, okay, I wanted to ask you a little change of gear to something pandemic related. So COVID, as you know, has changed everything in the last 2 years as we know it, including making everyone more comfortable with working from home. What impact has COVID had on your experiences from working at home?
I have to tell you, as much as has been horrible in so many ways, I feel like I had a world of opportunities open up because of the fact that I've been working from home for 4 or 5 years. Um, a lot of the rules changed, and clients were comfortable, meeting online and not having to go to their place of work, or driving to Toronto when I'm an hour away from Toronto myself. So all of that, with having chronic pain and fatigue and some cognitive issues, some days you can't schedule it. So it was just like I could just be comfortable, and some of that stress came down. And as soon as I have more stress, it causes my muscles to contract, and then it just like it's a spiral out of control for there. So I think having that flexibility and not having to worry about that was just so much more easier for me to excel at what I wanted to do, but also for programs that happen to do with accelerators and things like that. They changed those rules as well. They could be virtual. Everyone shifted to the digital platforms, and all of a sudden I was able to participate a whole lot more. And like I said, I just had so many more opportunities. I'm in my third sort of accelerator type um, program now, and it's I don't think I could have done them otherwise. And being able to connect with more people online, I've been able to network a lot easier because people just are okay with it. They're comfortable with it. It's same with our team members that have disabilities. A lot of the pressures have come off from them having to leave their home and travel to a location and whatnot.
When you're given a chance to participate and the flexibility to do so, I think people with disabilities can really stand out.
Absolutely. I think I really hope that a lot of it doesn't change. I know more and more people are hoping to have the networking aspect in person. Again, they miss the social, but I'd like to hope that people still get the option for, virtual login to, a conference rather than having to be there in person. So many people are much more successful and can excel further when they are given options.
For sure. That's my experience for myself as well. In my job, it was a very social, a lot of foot traffic, people walking through, and I miss that part. But I definitely see the future as being hybrid, giving people the option to whether they want to come into work or be able to do it from home. Job accommodation, it isn't something everyone's comfortable to talk about. It's very personal and it can be very tricky to navigate. In your experience as an employer, what works well in approaching a conversation about accommodation at work? Any do's and don'ts that you want to share or experiences?
Yeah, I think so. I've been the employer with two different sides. I was the employer without understanding what accommodations were and how people required them. And I remember not thinking about it from a different perspective until I experienced it myself. Now, as an employer, and this company is all about providing flexible employment opportunities for people that have been impacted by disability. Um, we ask them to be upfront about what they need and what kind of requirements. We don't ask people to work a traditional 9 to 5. We do set deadlines for projects and we ask people to meet those, but how they meet those and what hours they work, that's completely up to them. Because again, with something like myself particularly, I don't know when I'm going to have a bad day. I could have a great week and then I could have 2 weeks of flaring. So we really encourage people to discuss what they need and how they need it, and to be open and upfront and honest when, so that we can fully engage them into a project and still make sure that they feel like they're contributing. And I know in a couple of cases, they've had things that they like, lots of doctor's appointments or physiotherapy or some sort of treatment options. As long as they make up the time, then I'm fine with that. I don't think, traditional employers only give you set number of sick days, set number of time off days. I feel that if you give people the trust and they are open and honest, then you can avoid all of those technicalities, and the projects are still getting done and the clients are still happy.
Okay, that brings us up to present time with Accessibrand. Why did you think that? Why did you start Accessibrand, and why is it important to have a collective of like-minded people?
I think the biggest thing that I felt and why it was needed is number one, um, is the fact that there's so many people impacted by disability. And I say impacted by disability because they don't necessarily always have a disability themselves, but maybe they're a parent and their child has medically fragile, which is how my journey started out. And all of a sudden, you're trying to balance a career and a family. It can be very difficult. Um, I think seeing that need, even for myself, and then meeting other people through being on a municipal advisory committee, and how, I was talking about, people being on disability for so long and but wanting to work, but nobody giving them the option to be flexible or having part-time work or freelance. They want to be part of workplaces, they want to be part of society, but they're stuck on a system because they're going to lose out. So having that component for me was really important, because the more I talk to individuals who are in the same situation or similar, the more they stress, like, oh my gosh, this is so needed. We need more people to be open-minded. But the other half is the fact that the entire design and marketing community really are always trying to fix digital accessibility after things are done. So, we don't build buildings without wheelchair access. We just don't do that anymore. You know that you're segregating a big chunk of the population. So why are we building websites and marketing communication tools that we know that people with disabilities potentially can't access? And that's, in Canada, I think it's about 22% of the population have identified with a disability. So why wouldn't you want to make it accessible for all? People with disabilities shouldn't have to struggle to access information, to pay their bills, to download building permits, to watch videos that everyone else can do. We talk about encouraging independent living. Well, if we don't fix simple things like marketing and design and websites for digital accessibility, they still need someone to support them, when it could be something very simple to fix if we thought about the process differently in the beginning. So that's my long-winded approach to why I feel this is so necessary. A lot of it is me thinking about my daughter growing up, being a little person and being judged based on what she looks like because she's going to be 4 feet tall. Where's the justice in that? So if we can all work together to look and rethink about how digital accessibility is created, then hopefully that's a trickle-down effect.
I like the concept of building accessibility from the very beginning, having the thought of inclusion from the very conception. I think is very important. Inclusion for everybody, barrier free. So that's very important in the digital space as well. A little different from the physical space.
Yeah.
Do you find that it helps to have a voice at the table, having a collective of people with disabilities?
Absolutely. I mean, out of 20 of us that are in the group, I'd say about 85% of us have a disability ourselves, which is a different ratio than I thought we would have. I thought it would be more like parents or siblings and things like that that have been exposed to it and raised in the disability community. But it's most of us have a different type of disability that we are dealing with day to day, and that lived experience is the best experience that anyone could see. Our lead auditor, who's completely blind, we can give you a report of why your website doesn't work. You can see the technical compliance using software. You may see 97% compliance using, an online checker. But then if you have someone with an actual disability, like Andrew, go and use his assistive technology to view the website, all of a sudden, it's a whole different experience for the client. We've given reports without them seeing Andrew use his assistive technology, and they still go, oh, well, we'll try and fix it. Well, then we give them a demo and show them how he is experiencing the website. I've had one client in tears. All we need to do is bring this to light so people can understand the inequalities with just simply accessing information by experiencing what it's like to have a disability, and try to do the same thing that each of us do every day without having, distress. So the fact that we all have different backgrounds and different life experience, I think, is crucial for people to understand the importance of why they need to fix it.
And seeing things from someone else's perspective is it's extremely powerful. I've used a wheelchair most of my life, and when I spend time with able-bodied friends who didn't have much experience with wheelchairs or physical accessibility, you can tell how surprised they are when they learn of the needs. Like, oh, a curb cut is important. Having a table that you can roll under is important for inclusion. All these things. So having a collective such as yours, where you can actually explain, and it's not an automated button that tells you your compliance rate and gives you a percentage. You tell them exactly what's wrong and why you can't access it. I think that's great.
Yeah, I think it's really important that people with disabilities are included in all projects and all levels. And what I see so often that really upsets me is a lot of people are always asking the disability community to volunteer to help create or improve their projects, but then they're not compensated. So, just because you have a disability, like, obviously your project's not going to go well unless you have people with lived experience. So being able to come to our group, we don't represent all disabilities, but we have quite a few within our group, is that they can understand that, our roles are just as important as their roles and their project. And their project won't be successful without understanding it from real live experience. So I think it's really critical for people to understand that connection, and that, disability doesn't mean inability. It just means that we experience life differently, but with, as the saying goes, nothing for us without us. And that needs to be properly compensated and looked at from a professional perspective, not as a handout and gift cards and things like that we see so often.
For sure. Do you have any advice for an employer looking to speak to their employees about accommodation? Is there any a special approach that you think works, or just be upfront? What would you say?
I mean, in a perfect world, I'd hope that everybody would be upfront and honest about having a disability, because I mean, that's what I hope for myself and for my daughter for the future. But I know that's probably, wishful thinking. Um, so, I mean, from one employer to another employer, I would ask them to think about the possibility that disability can happen to you at any time, and how would you want to be treated? It's that old saying, "As do unto others as they would do unto you." I think that's the right way to say it, but that's what I would hope for people, is to think about those situations, and sometimes stop looking at your bottom line, because without your team, you're nothing.
Speaking of building a team, the benefits of building a diverse workforce are well known, but still the employment rate for people with disabilities in Canada is pretty high.
Mhm.
What would you what advice would you give an HR specialist who's trying to expand employee diversity in their workplace? And do you have any tips on how they might access the untapped talent of market of people with disabilities?
It's been a common discussion within client bases as well, for the question that you just asked. I think a lot of the times people are stuck on credentials, but lived experience is really sometimes better than any degree or diploma, depending on what kind of position it is. Obviously, if you need to be a doctor or a lawyer, it's a little bit different, but for a lot of roles, to look at their lived experience as also the hybrid approach with interviewing. A lot of people are not comfortable with traditional interviewing processes. So sometimes it's very difficult, and you may miss their untapped talent by judging them based on their character through the interview process, especially goes for the neurodiverse population. So I would say from an HR perspective is try to not be so by the book, maybe, and look at the potential of giving someone the opportunity for a hybrid approach for an interview, whether that's virtual and in person, but not to write off their resume without speaking to them and understanding sort of their background and their situation.
Very true. Very true. I think lived experience is important. There may be gaps in resumes, but there may be health issues. There may be mental health, physical health. There's a lot of reasons. So it's important to give someone the opportunity to speak for themselves and explain their situation, their lived experiences, and all their experience.
Especially, yeah, I think especially with the gaps in resumes, a lot of employers, and I was one of them, you'd look, oh, well, why weren't they doing this for so many years? Get rid of the castaway judgment. I think the unemployment rates are still so high because the system is perpetuated with people being on, ODSP in particular, or disability, because they're capped at how much they can do, and then they lose their benefits. So they're really stuck in a situation that is it's just a downward spiral. Sometimes they're not making enough to live off of it, but they can't afford to go off of it because they need the benefits that come from it. So something that we do with our team is, try to be flexible with, hours can change. They can be less hours one week, more hours another, as well as if they want to be self-employed. Most of our team, our contractors, will teach them how to do that. So, we do have a couple full time, but we also have mostly contracts. So many of them have no idea how to be self employed. So I also offer that opportunity, is to teach them how to be self employed and make their own invoices, and introduce them to people that can help them with that.
Thank you, Jolene, for joining us. Be sure to check out our website at courtree.com and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Courtree TV.
Thank you, Oda.